Hey everybody, welcome back to yet another one of my videos. This is a story about human error, aka sheer stupidity, which is where I come in. Why am I showing you this gas tank? I am showing you this gas tank because this gas tank is where our story begins. This tank has what I consider to be a kind of a pain. I was going to say a flaw, but I mean it just wasn't designed for what I'm trying to do with it. My other tank is designed to be able to use one of these cheap plastic funnels. The way it works is, by design, this is made to slip over the neck here on the can, and now I can pour from the can easily directly into the funnel into a tank on the ATV, on the tractor, on whatever. Pretty good. I wanted to get some fresh gas, so I topped off this can at the gas station. This tank looks almost identical, except for one big issue. It has the bracket welded on here in this manner, so there's no way to put this funnel on this tank. So what I have to do, I have to essentially just use a regular funnel, or I stick this funnel in whatever I'm filling and I turn it around this way and try and pour the gas in that way from the can directly. On my other can, I had stuck the funnel in like so. There was a little bit of gas left in this can, and I wanted to fill this can at the gas station. So I took the gas that was left in this can and I put the funnel in the other can like this, and I transferred that fuel to that gas tank, no problem. Then I went to the gas station with this one and I filled it and I came back. Then I didn't do anything. I mean, literally didn't do anything, which was the first problem. I forgot that can in the yard with this funnel sticking in it, just like that. And guess what happened? We had a pouring rainstorm. We had a big rainstorm, a lot of rain. Then it sat there, and for whatever reason, mental midget that I am, I inadvertently forgot that this had been exposed to the rain. And when I saw it days later, I didn't put two and two together. Or I did. Put two and two together and I got like 8. So, long story short, I poured the gas that was in that can with the water in it, the rainwater in it, I poured that into the ATV. Now the ATV had some gas in the tank, but it wasn't enough, and there was a lot of water in that gas. So of course we were trying to drive the ATV around. It started running really poorly, and then I started to realize that the way it was running, it sure seemed like water contamination in the gas. And then all of a sudden the aha moment hit me. Oh yeah, I remember seeing the funnel in there, and that's right, we had a rainstorm. Oh duh. Then I made mistake number 2. Mistake number 2 was thinking that if I added more clean gas that I had just gotten from the store to the tank and added some dry gas to the tank, that I would be able to burn off the moisture, the water in the tank, and everything was going to be hunky-dory. And then I wouldn't waste any fuel. God forbid you waste a gallon of fuel at, $2.50 or whatever it is right now. So I made myself a big headache for nothing. I could have just done the right thing, drained all that fuel off right off the bat, put fresh fuel in it, I probably would have been okay. Here's the problem. I added all that stuff, it ran, seemed like we got it running, I thought it was going to be okay, it ran for a little bit, and then it went right back to doing it again. Then I left it in disgust. Part of the reason why I kept giving up on this thing so much was because I was thinking I was going to have a heart attack. I thought my heart was going to blow out of my chest, because the other issue we have with this ATV is that the battery is junk. It will not take a charge. It does that. It won't take a charge. This battery is garbage. The battery that's in this ATV is stupid expensive. I say stupid expensive because I can buy a passenger car battery when it's on sale. I can buy one of those, decent brand, for around the same money as what they want for this battery at the auto parts store or even at Walmart, which is about 80 to 90 bucks. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Just buy it online. I did. I bought a new battery for this thing online. I bought it on eBay. I found one for, with shipping, about 40 bucks. You could either find them for like $40 in free shipping, or you could find them for like 25, but then they put the shipping on and you're back to the 40 anyways. So about 40 bucks, brand new battery. Sure, it's gonna be a cheap battery. Sure, it might not be as good, or maybe it is as good as the other one. I don't know. Here's the problem. Like everything else right now, because it is right around Christmas time, it is now, what is today? Today is January 3rd, okay, 2021, in case I didn't say it at the beginning. The Postal Service, which is what is being used by the seller to deliver these batteries, and not priority mail, but regular postal, is in chaos. Everything is delayed. Priority mail that was taking normally 3-5 days tops is taking 2 weeks or more. It's at least that's what I'm experiencing, both on things I've shipped and both things I've received. Of course, on eBay, it said expected delivery on that battery was by, I forgot what the date was originally, December 29th, I believe. So we're not too far over. Long story short, I got no battery. I got to pull this thing. This is a 400 cc. It's got automatic compression release, but it's still bare to pull. I'm a little bit older now. I'm left-handed, and I tore this rotator cuff years ago, so needless to say, I'm just not in the greatest of shape for pulling this thing. And every once in a while, when you go to pull it, you don't catch it on the right part of the stroke, and you get that dead lock up that no one likes to feel. I don't care how old you are or young you are. So this thing was, I thought it was going to die last night. All right, so getting back to this thing, right? So I put the crap in there, that didn't work. So then I go, okay, now I know what I got to do. I drained off some gas, looked at it, sure enough, water contamination. I drained the tank. I put a little bit of fresh gas in there. I try again, still no dice. But I realize I'm not fully draining the tank on this thing, because that's where my other design issue comes in. The Suzuki Eiger fuel shutoff, which is not really a fuel shutoff in the sense of other fuel shutoffs. Okay, so what's different about this, and actually they use this design I think on other ATVs, so this might not be unique to this ATV, but I like my Yamaha Grizzly and the Hondas motorcycles, the CRFs and the XRs. They all have a fuel shutoff that works pretty definitively. There's an off position, which means no fuel flows. There is an on position, which means fuel flows, but it flows into, there's almost like a standpipe, for lack of a better term. It sticks up in here. It's got a screen on it, and there's an upper one and a lower one. When it's in the on position, it allows fuel to flow in just through the upper one and flow unimpeded to the carburetor. Got it? What happens is when you're running and you run down below that low point, when the fuel level gets below that upper standpipe and it's on, you run out of gas. But then you switch the switch to reserve, which then allows you to draw fuel from a lower standpipe and lower inlet, and you get that last little bit of fuel in there. You're now running on reserve. You now know you only have so many miles to go before you're completely out of fuel, but it might be enough for you to get to some place to put more fuel in. That's the purpose of that. That's why you have on, off, reserve. Wonderful. Works great. One drawback: if you leave it in the on or reserve position when you're done riding and you have something happen that for some reason your float, your bowl, your needle seat and your float bowl on your carburetor leaks, you can end up with gas running into the crankcase. So that's the only drawback to that design that I see. So somebody came up with this design here and thought that it was the greatest thing since sliced bread, right? What we have on here is we have reserve, we have PRI, and we have on. Okay? So here's the deal with this one. This is a specially designed valve. It has a like a diaphragm in it, and it runs off of engine vacuum. And what happens is when this is in the on or reserve positions, either one of those two positions, fuel does not just easily flow through unless the engine's running and creating vacuum on this line. And when you have vacuum on this line, what happens is it opens up this valve and lets the fuel flow. Okay? So the idea is you theoretically can leave that in the on position, and when you shut the engine off, the flow will stop. And you don't have to worry about your carburetor flooding out, your engine flooding out, right? Because of a stuck bowl or something like that. PRI, I think, stands for prime. I'm not positive. But PRI is a position that is like on the old style, on the other style that I was talking about, where it just lets the fuel flow right through. Okay? But PRI probably only lets the fuel flow straight through the higher of those two standpipes or inlets. So when you're on reserve, you're going through that lower inlet, but it's still vacuum assisted. If you're on, you're at the higher inlet, vacuum assisted. And when you're on prime, you're on just let the fuel flow through, but I don't know from where. The reason why I go through all this is to explain that it's very difficult to completely drain this tank like I want to do with this design. To make matters worse, you've got that hump of the frame in there, and because of the design of the tank, you get a little bit of fuel that sits in the bottom. Well, guess where water wants to sit in a fuel tank? Water likes to settle in the bottom of the fuel tank. So it's tough to get it out. So when adding more gas didn't work, when draining it from here and then putting new fuel in didn't work, I then decided to get medieval on this thing and go all hog wild and really do my best to drain this tank. I drained as much as I could out from here, and then I went in there and I used various implements of destruction. I sucked on this hose, which is also that's always a treat, and got a siphon going and pumped out the tank as best as I could with this. And then when I got only a little bit left in the bottom, I sat there and used this metal turkey baster thing and literally sucked out as much fuel as I could, and I thought I got just about everything out of there. Topped it off with fresh fuel, started it up, took a while to get it started, finally got it running, ran poorly, took forever to get it to the point where it would actually let me accelerate without dying, and then it would idle with the choke off. And when I got to that point, I figured, okay, great, seems like it's good, I'm going to take it for a ride. I took it for one little spin around the yard and one circle around the house. It seemed okay. I headed out in the field. I got halfway across the field and it just started backfiring and everything went bad. And then then it died, and then I couldn't get it restarted. And if I did get it to restart, I couldn't get it to move. I couldn't get it to stay running long enough to put it in gear. It's just kaput. So here's what I think has happened. I think what has happened is, I think that in the carburetor, that when I open this carburetor up, take the bowl off, I think what I'm going to find is I'm going to find a bunch of stuff that, for lack of a better term, looks like balls of snot. What I think that is I think that dry gas crap that I put in here, I think what it did was it did its job, and it probably bonded with a lot of the water molecules that are in there. And the idea is it's supposed to make it so that it bonds. I actually don't know the science behind it, so I should just stop talking right now. I already proved I'm an idiot by the beginning of this video, so we shouldn't talk about my thoughts on what the hell's happening chemically here. But long story short, I think that there's a chemical byproduct of that dry gas that was created and made these chunks of crap that are now in the carburetor. And what happens is, as I'm driving along and they slosh around, every once in a while, one of them gets sucked up and blocks support. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to drain the tank again. Like I said, I'm going to get medieval now. I'm going to take the tank out of this ATV so I can get everything out of this tank. So I'm going to take this plastic side off. This one's already off. I've had that off for a while and I never got around to putting it back on. First things first, I am going to drain off some fuel and just see whether or not it looks like it has any water contamination. I like keeping a supply of nice clean jars like this when we get done using. This was salsa. These are great. They're clean. I can put fuel in here and I can hold it up and I can determine whether or not it looks like it has water contamination in it. If it doesn't, then because it's a clean jar, I can dump it right back into the tank and recycle it. If it does, well then obviously it means I've gotten to the bottom of my problem. You literally put this in the on position and when it's not running, that's like the closest thing to off, if that makes sense. So now I'm going to put it in the prime position, and what that's going to do is that's going to let fuel run straight out. Oh, I could stop right there. I could see this is horrible. Oh my, that's pretty ridiculous. So what you're looking at is you're looking at the stratification of the fuel, water. That's all water in the bottom. That's some fuel, but it's got heavily contaminated. This is just crap. This is my waste gas can, and believe it or not, didn't have much in it when I started, and now it's on its way to full. So with all my numerous tries and all this other stupidity, I've wasted quite a bit of gas. So what started out as me trying to save a couple of bucks and save like a gallon of gas or so, turned into or however much was in that can, I don't know. And the other thing too is when I have this on prime, I don't know whether or not it's pulling from that high standpipe or the low standpipe, the high inlet or the low inlet, which means even when I drain all of this off through this method right here, there's really no way to get all of that fuel out of the tank, because that fuel at the bottom of the tank, remember, only comes out through the reserve line. And on this design, the reserve line does not allow fuel to flow unless the engine's running. So now you could see a much clearer stratification there. You could see the water fuel line is much more pronounced. All right. Now we're getting a lot more fuel versus water in the bottom. Okay, so that's it. That's as much as I can get out, and we still got water in the bottom. I can't get any more fuel out of this tank using this method because, again, when I put it on reserve, no fuel flows. So that means now the reserve area of the tank still is full of fuel contaminated with water that we've got to get out of there. So, time to pull the tank. A lot of people make the mistake of trying to reach underneath here and pry these out. And that's not by design. They're supposed to be gripped in there, so you can break them doing that. So there's a little centerpiece right here. If you push this in, just like that, that will release this. Okay? And then when you go to put them back in, you pull this centerpiece out and compress these plastic little legs, stick it in there, and then push that flush, and that locks it in. So there you go. That's my little tip of the day. Of course, no sooner do I show you that than I run into the change in design. So this one you can't push it all the way through because the head is too large. But this one, they give you these little areas on the side here, and there's a special tool for popping these out that makes it really easy, but I don't have one, so I just get the screwdriver underneath there and pry them up. So I wonder which of this style is original, because that one I just showed you is the only one of that style. The rest of them are the other style. Now you can see, now we have really good, easy access to the, well, relatively easy access, or easier access to the carburetor. And it's going to get even better when we take the tank out. So I would take this side piece that I just took off of here, off of this side, but mine's already off. So now I got to take, this screw's already missing, this keeper's already missing. Take this screw out, and we got one keeper on that side. All right, the snorkel for the air cleaner, that's gonna have to come off. Oh, I forgot to hit record on the camera, but I had to go get a thin wall socket because this is a 10mm bolt right here, and it's recessed into this rubber bumper thing here, which is a pain in the butt to get the socket in there. But anyways, all right. Alright, so we got two screws here, so it looks like what we got to do is pop this out of the way, and then it probably turns and drops down underneath it. That's what I'm guessing. Turn it, drop it underneath it like that. That's a vent line. Cap off, shift it rearward. Well, I guess I was wrong about that. Two Phillips head screws in the front here. Two screws in the front here. Let's see how tight those are screwed in. Well, all right, they're breaking free. That's nice. Oh, yeah. Oh, oh, oh. Screw alert. All right, hit my pant leg so I know where it is, roughly. If Found it. What I'm really hoping is that if we take these 2 bolts out of the back here, that this tilts up and pulls out, and that the front of the tank is designed to just like sit into the frame somehow. That there aren't any fasteners up underneath here that I gotta get to. Because then it means I gotta get up underneath this, which I am not relishing the thought of having to do. 10 millimeter, gotta love it. 10 millimeter, without a doubt the most popular metric size fastener. I was right about there being no fasteners in the front. It does come up and out. The problem is the shifting assembly here. This mechanism's in the way. Could this be 10 millimeter also? Oh yeah. All right, with this unbolted, just drop this down like that, all right? Lift in the rear, pulling outward towards, all right, something's hanging up here. Bumpers. They just pop into the frame. So if I reach under here and I pull these 2 bumpers out, see this rubber bumper? I didn't want to try and pull it out too hard because I could see the way that's supposed to be latched in there. It'd be real easy to break that off. I don't want to do that. That should just pop in there and stay in there, but this one was almost like it was out. I don't know. See, there's the deal. These rubber isolation mounts just basically sit up there inside the frame. Getting this back in might be a little tricky. Now I can really drain this tank. Now remember, this was a clean jar when I started. Look at the house of horrors that was in there, in the bottom of that tank still. What I wasn't draining off previously. Not only is there a ton of water in there, there's also a bunch of debris. Again, talking about design and engineering. Because of the funky shape of this tank, because the way it has to sit in the frame and everything, it's got these low spots in the back here, and stuff can sit back here, right? And then when you're driving and it's sloshing around, it gets mixed in, right? But when you're draining the tank, look at these 2 big lower areas here. And this area here too, even this to some degree, you know, it's not all going to sit here. Not to mention, since again, the problem with the valve design. So, case in point, I had this inverted upside down and I drained off what you just saw. At that point, it stopped draining. Tank empty? Wrong. Shaking the tank up and down violently and able to get everything moving out of those low spots, I was able to produce this lovely sample. Alright, so I'm rethinking my original theory about snots in the carburetor. And that, in fact, I think what I've got is just all that water was in there causing the problem. And every once in a while, you know, a pocket of decent enough gas would get in there and it would be able to run. And then as I started driving and it mixed with the water would get in there and poof, you know. So, instead of pulling the carburetor like I had intended, I'm going to open the bowl drain on the carburetor, drain off whatever's left in that bowl. Then I'm going to put fresh gas in the tank, put the tank on. So what I'm going to use this for now is I'm going to dump this into my tank and I'm going to slosh it around and use it to rinse the tank. So this gas is now going to be wasted. Well, not really wasted, it's doing a job. Now I'm going to decant this back into that same jar, and I'm not going to expect to really see water so much as I want to see if there's any more of that plain old dirt in there and debris. Wow. Where is all that water coming from? That's the clean gas I just dumped in there. Dumped back out gives me this. You know, it's just cold enough out here. I'm wondering whether or not there's ice in this tank. Alright, so I opened the bowl drain, which is a screw that faces out this direction on the very bottom of the carburetor. And I let all of the fuel that was left in the bowl, contaminated fuel, drain out. So now I know that's clear. Rather than put the whole tank on, put new fuel in, go through all of that to see if this is going to work, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill the carburetor bowl with fuel, fresh clean fuel. And I'm going to try and start it and run it and just let it run off of the fuel that's in the bowl. This line right here actually was tucked underneath like this. This is the vacuum line. This is the vacuum line that goes to that fuel valve, that vacuum actuated fuel petcock on the bottom of the tank. So this goes right to a nipple right on the intake. So this is a major vacuum leak that has to be blocked before you can run this with the tank off. Done. Alright, fuel's coming back up and not going down any further, so the bowl must be full and the float's doing its job. If everything's kosher inside that carburetor, I should be able to start this thing and run it. It seems pretty good. I shut the choke off prematurely. It's pretty cold out here. It's about 29, I don't know, maybe, might be 35 degrees, somewhere around there. It's right around the freezing mark. Caught it right before it ran out of fuel. It's still not letting me open up the throttle without it stalling. And it seems like it's warm enough now. Well, with the tank off and all of the shrouds off like this, it just isn't that difficult to take the carburetor out. So I'm going to take it out so I can take a peek, give it a quick cleaning. So I loosened up the clamp that allows this flexible hose from the air filter to be popped off. And then I loosened up the clamp that clamps it to the flexible boot on the intake. Should be able to pop it out just far enough to get it out. Looks like that vacuum line does not go to a nipple on the intake. It goes to a nipple on the carburetor right before the intake boot. So carburetor's actually got that built into it. So this carburetor would be unique to this type of design. Alright, going out from this side doesn't look like it's such a great idea. I got too much wiring harness in the way. Hot exhaust pipe in the way on this side, but I think there's enough room to pop it out. Turn it on its side here and get it to pop this way. There we go. Well, it's a tight fit no matter how you slice it. Actually able to turn the carburetor so that the bowl is facing me. Believe it or not, I think I can actually take that bowl off without taking the carburetor out. The reason why I'm not taking the carburetor out is because the choke cable, I don't have a wrench that'll fit in there on me right now, and I don't feel like going to get one. I just want to be very careful not to drop any screws, especially into the intake. Well, there's the culprit right there. A couple of big chunks of something. Alright, noting the little puddle of fuel in the corner. We got a big chunk of something floating around, but then there's a huge chunk of something there. I tell you what, that huge chunk of something is going to probably remain unidentifiable. Oh, that's a happy sounding 4-stroke right there, I tell you. So I reinstalled the bowl. Well, first I pulled out the main and idle circuit jets. I looked through them, and Just like Schultzy, I saw nothing. They were perfectly clean. Could see light through them. No problem there. Not going to obviously do a full tear down because it was running. So the stuff in the bowl I think was just getting sucked up and clogging the high-speed jet. So at least that's what I'm hoping. So I put it back in. I put it all back together as far as the carburetor intake boot and all that. Oh, I forgot I gotta put my plug into my intake line here. And I topped off the bowl again. Let's give this another shot. Choke on. Alright, probably just ran out of fuel in the bowl. I think it might work. I'm ready to risk putting the tank on. Oh, quick word of warning. When you unbolt this assembly and you let it swing down like I did, what I didn't notice was that this plastic piece fell out of inside here. So apparently there's nothing that retains that in there. Looks like, yeah, it only goes in one way. Yeah, it goes in that way. So you gotta make sure that goes back in there correctly. Don't want to lose that. Oh, all right. Don't forget to reconnect, obviously, your fuel line, but the one you might forget is the vacuum line. All right, got fresh fuel in the tank. Let's see what we can do. Hey, it's on there. Finished just in time. Starting to sleet or hail, or not hail, I don't know, those little tiny ice balls, not snow, you know what I mean. All right, thanks for watching.